So the reason behind coming live is actually to let you know, to inform you that I have already launched my CUT PG English Literature batch, crash course batch. If you want to join the crash course batch, definitely do comment in the comment box. And in this video also I'll be helping you how you will be preparing for the upcoming CUT PG 2024 exam. Which are the important writers that you need to cover, which are the important movements you need to cover. And if I talk about the crash course batch, actually I'll be covering both the parts. You all know that in part A there are total 25 questions and in part B there are total 75 questions. So in that crash course batch actually I'll be covering both the parts, part A as well as part B. So if you want to join the crash course batch, you can join as well. You can join that crash course batch actually, and I'll be definitely helping you to qualify CUT PG 2024 English Literature exam. And the thing that I was talking about is actually that how to prepare for CUT PG 2024 English Literature exam. Which are the important writers that you need to cover? Which are the important topics that you need to cover as well? So if I talk about the first thing, if I talk about the history of English literature, so in history, from the core subject, from your core subject, you will be getting total 75 questions. So you need to cover the major authors. Now, the question that comes in your mind is that which are the major authors that you need to cover when you are appearing for the CUT PG exam? So if I talk about from the very beginning, from the old English literature, starting from here the important writers like Chaucer. So Chaucer, you need to cover Chaucer's the Canterbury Tales and important works of Chaucer as well. And after covering Chaucer, you also need to cover William Langland, John Gower. William Langland, John Gower. These are important writers from Chaucer, the age of Chaucer actually. And you know that the age of Chaucer is from 1340 to 1400. And within that period, there were several writers like Chaucer, then you have Langland, John Gower. These are actually famous writers of that period. After that age of Chaucer, we talk about, then comes the medieval period, the age of revival actually. There the writers like Thomas More's. Thomas More's Utopia is very important for the perspective of CUT PG English Literature exam. Thomas More's Utopia. And there you will be Thomas Mallory's Maudie Arthur actually. So from the age of revival, there are two important writers like Thomas More's and the Thomas Mallory. Okay. And the popular Bible translation as well, like the translations of William Tyndale, Coverdale as well. So you need to cover that as well. So, and as well as if I talk about the literary movements, and from the Chaucerian period, you will be getting two literary movements. One is the English Chaucerians, another one is the Scottish Chaucerians. One is the English Chaucerians, another one is the Scottish Chaucerians. So, who are the English Chaucerians and who are the Scottish Chaucerians? You need to remember. And like that, in which work Chaucer has employed rhyme royal, Ottava rima. So you need to cover all that thing. Okay, I'll be covering in my crash course page everything. And then if I talk about, and after that literary movement of that is English Chaucerians and Scottish Chaucerians, there are literary movements like you have university wits. Okay, the seven writers there within that university wits, there were that is Green, Nash, Marlowe, and you have Lilly, Lodge, and George Phil. And you also sometimes Thomas Kidd is also added in that group, the university wits. So the university, who were the university wits? Okay, these are also important. This is also an important topic you need to cover for CUT PG exam. And after that, okay, you need to cover here the writers like in the Elizabethan period, that is 1558 to 1603. That is the 1558 to 1603 here. In Elizabethan period, important writers like you have Edmund Spenser. Edmund Spenser, after completing or finishing Edmund Spenser, you have to cover Philip Sidney as well. Philip Sidney, Michael Drayton's, the sonnets of Michael Drayton and the works of Philip Sidney are very important. So Edmund Spenser, Philip Sidney, Michael Drayton. And you need to also look the popular Bible translation as well. In which year the popular Bible was translated. So popular Bible translation was also important for the CUTPG exam. And in that Elizabethan period, there were important dramatists. Okay, Elizabethan plays were very important. Important dramatists like you have Christopher Marlowe, the important works of Christopher Marlowe, Robert Greene, Thomas Nash, John Lilly, Lodge, George Peele, Thomas Kidd, and the first and the foremost the works of William Shakespeare. So in the Elizabethan period, we have to cover important works of William Shakespeare and Christopher Marlowe. Along with Marlowe and Christopher, you have to also cover the works of John Lilly and Robert Greene, Thomas Nash as well. And in that period, there is the essayist like Francis Bacon. The works of Francis Bacon are also very important. The works of Francis Bacon is also very important. So Francis Bacon's works are very important. Along with that work of essayist. Okay, moving back to moving ahead to Jacobean era, actually Jacobean, and from Jacobean actually 1603 to 1625. So in that Jacobean era, we have the dramatists like Ben Jonson. Ben Jonson, the very important writer in that era actually. Ben Jonson, talking about the important works of Ben Jonson, you have to cover. And here the works of George Chapman, Beaumont and Fletcher, John Webster, the Duchess of Malfi, Thomas Middleton's as well, Thomas Dekker, Philip Messenger. And so the important writers of Jacobean and Caroline age is actually that is Beaumont and Fletcher, Ben Jonson's, Webster's and Thomas Middleton. These are important writers. We need to cover the important aspects of the works actually. And if I talk about the poet, okay, if I talk about the poets like John Donne, okay, John Donne's important poems are very important. The poems of John Donne are very important. Then after that, Henry Vaughan, Richard Crasso, George Herbert, Andrew Marvell's poems also, and Abraham Cowley. Abraham Cowley, where you see that it was Samuel Johnson who actually coined metaphysical poets in that Life of Cowley. So here Abraham Cowley, John Donne, Richard Crasso, Andrew Marvell, the works of these metaphysical poets are also important for CUTPG exam. And so I told that you have to cover English Chaucerians, Scottish Chaucerians, then you have to cover university wits, and after covering university wits, you have to also cover Comedy of Humors, that is by Ben Jonson, and the important work of Masque by Ben Jonson. We have the important Masque written by Ben Jonson, and after covering Ben Jonson, so okay, there is also a literary movement called Sons of Ben, okay, who are heavily influenced by the works of Ben Jonson. And the literary movement, metaphysical poets that I talked about, that it was Samuel Johnson who coined the term metaphysical poets on Life of Cowley. That is actually the name of the work is Lives of the Most Eminent English Poets. And in that work, there is the chapter called Life of Cowley. In that chapter, he had coined the term metaphysical poets. So the metaphysical poets, this movement, actually literary movement, it also have to be covered. And that after that, you have to cover also Cavalier poet. What is Cavalier poets? That is like you have Thomas Carew, Richard Lovelace, then you have like John Suckling, Robert Herrick. So they were actually Cavalier poets. Who are the famous Cavalier poets? You have to also cover and their important works. One or two important works of Thomas Cavalier poets. So after covering Cavalier poets, you have also in the Enlightenment age, there is the Commedia dell'arte, and the most important is the Kit Kat Club and the Scribblers Clubs. Who are the members of Kit Kat Clubs? Who are the members of Scribblers Clubs? You need to cover also that. So the members of Kit Kat Club, the members of Scribblers Clubs, you need to cover when you are preparing for CUTPG exam. As well as who are the main graveyard poets? Who are the main graveyard poets? Okay, the main graveyard poets and their important one or two important works of those authors. And in the Romantic age, you'll be finding the literary movements like lake poets, who were the important lake poets. Then you have Cockney School of Poetry, Satanic School of Poetry. So in the Romantic movement, there were three schools. One was that is the Cockney School. Then you have the Satanic School and the Lake School. And if we talk about in American literature, there is the Dark Romantics. The Dark Romantics writers like Edgar Allan Poe, Nathan Hawthorne, and Herman Melville. Charles Baudelaire, French poet, sometimes also called as. So Dark Romantics of American literature, the Dark Romantic writer, as well as that the movement called transcendentalism. The movement called transcendentalism. You have to cover also that. And in the Victorian age, there is the pre-Raphaelite movement, and what is aestheticism as well. So in the Victorian age, there is the literary movement called, that is the pre-Raphaelite movement, started in 1848, and after that you have also aestheticism, and who were the main proponent of aesthetic movement, aestheticism, aesthetic movement. This is to be also covered actually. And in the this also there is also fireside poets. So they are also known as schoolroom or household poets. Fireside poets, schoolroom poets, or household poets. And also then comes the Oxford movement. Oxford movement is actually a religious movement. Oxford movement is actually a religious movement, and its purpose was to bring back the Catholic ideas. Okay, its purpose of Oxford movement is actually to bring back the Catholic elements. Was the purpose of Oxford movement. It was actually a religious movement in the Church of England, to bring back the Catholic elements in the Church of England was the main purpose. And it is John Henry Newman and Edward Weber Pusey. They were actually famous proponent of that, who were actually main proponent of that Oxford movement, were trying to revive that element of. And then comes realism, naturalism. Okay, the realism, like Gustav Flaubert's writers, the writings of Gustav Flaubert's, naturalism as well. Okay, and where I was talking about the poets of the 17th century, that is actually John Donne, Richard Crasso, Henry Vaughan. They were the metaphysical poets. And after completing that, okay, you have to also cover the writers like John Milton. The famous works of John Milton, like Paradise Lost. Okay, in which year it was published, the important writers, in which meter it was written, what was the influence of Paradise Lost. Okay, how many books were there, in which year the second volume was published. And in civil war or interregnum period, that is from 1549 to that is you have 1649 to 1660. This is the Puritan interregnum period, and in that period you have also writers like John Milton. Here you have it's actually from that is in the Restoration period, actually from 1660 to 1700 there. So but the Puritan interregnum period is actually from 1649 to 1660. So in that Restoration period, there are writers like John Milton, John Bunyan, Robert Barton, Thomas Browne, Jeremy Taylor, Richard Baxter as well. And the Restoration prose writers, like you have Dryden. Dryden was the master of prose writing. So in the Restoration period, it was Dryden who was the master. So Dryden was the important prose writers of Restoration period. You have like Samuel Butler. Okay, then John Evelyn and Samuel Pepys. They're the diarist. Okay, they're the diarist. John Evelyn and Samuel Pepys. Then you have Jeremy Collier's. The profaneness. He had actually attacked Van Bruce, William Congreve in his work, the profaneness, because of the nonsense words that have been used. Okay, because of the lack of morality in their works. It was Jeremy Collier who has actually attacked the Restoration dramatists, because they had portrayed the elements. They had portrayed in a bad manner. So the use of very slang language can be found in their works. That's why he had attacked Congreve, Van Brugh, and then. So there are two important diary writers. You have John Evelyn and Samuel Pepys in that Restoration period. Dramatists like you have George Etheredge. George Etheredge is the man of mode. The man of mode is actually starting the Restoration period. Okay, we can say that George Etheredge, the man of mode, is actually the starting period. This work is the starting period of Restoration drama. Then we have William Wycherley, George Forker, Thomas Otway, William Congreve, the important writer. Okay, then Afra Wayne, Oronuku, John Gay, William Congreve, Thomas Otway. These are important writers. Okay, and in the Enlightenment age, okay, that is from 1700, or the important in the Enlightenment, we have seen the Prose was developed again in full-fledged manner. Prose developed in a full-fledged manner in the Enlightenment age. The writers like you have Pope. So Alexander Pope, Swift, Richard Steele, Joseph Addison, and Samuel Johnson. So they were actually the Enlightenment prose writers. Who are the Enlightenment prose writers? Like you have Alexander Pope, Swift, Richard Steele, Joseph Addison, and Samuel Johnson. And in the Enlightenment, there are novelists like you have Daniel Defoe, Henry Fielding. You need to cover Defoe, Fielding, Samuel Richardson as well, Tobias Smollett, Lawrence Stearns, and Charlotte Lennox. And the important poets of that period Enlightenment era was actually Thomas Gray, Oliver Goldsmith, William Cooper, Robert Burns, William Blake, James Thomson, William Collins, and George Crabbe, James Macpherson, John Thomas Chatterton, Thomas Percy, John Stack. But you have to cover at least, okay, Thomas Gray, Oliver Goldsmith, Robert Burns, and William Cooper. Okay. And in the Romantic age, there are the famous writers like Samuel Taylor Coleridge, Wordsworth, Robert Southey, and Lord Byron Shelley, John Keats, and John Clare. You need to cover these important writers. Okay. So I told I have already launched my course for the CUT PG English Literature exam. If you want to join that crash course batch, in that batch, okay, I'll be covering both the parts. That is part A as well as part B. So if you want to join, you can comment. Okay, you can write down, you can pen down in the comment box. Okay, and also WhatsApp me this number 8250079065 as well. So, and here in the Romantic period, there are important prose writers like you have Hazlitt, Leigh Hunt, Charles Lamb, and Thomas De Quincey. So in the Romantic period, there were prose writers like that is William Hazlitt, Leigh Hunt, De Quincey, and Charles Lamb. But there are also novelists. There are also novelists like you have Walter Scott, Jane Austen, Walter Savage London. Okay. And in the Victorian age, we move about to Victorian age. There are poets like you have Tennyson, the famous important poet, Tennyson, Browning, Elizabeth Barrett Browning, D.G. Rossetti, Christina Rossetti, William Morris, very important writer, and Hopkins and A.C. Swinburne. Novelists like Dickens, and today I will be covering Dickens. Okay, in the evening session as well, I'll be covering MCQs on Dickens. Actually, so Dickens, Thackeray, Charles Reed, Anthony Trollope, Charlotte Bronte as well, and the R.P. Blackmore, Charles Kingsley, Elizabeth Gaskell, Stevenson, Hardy, Lewis Carroll, William Wilkie Collins. So these are important writers of the novelist. Okay, essays like you have Thomas Babington Macaulay, Thomas Carlyle, John Ruskin, Matthew Arnold, J.H. Newman, Walter Pater, and Oscar Wilde. They are the novelists of that Victorian era. We talk about the important novelist of modern era. We have like Joseph Conrad, George Lawrence, Huxley, Graham Greene, and E.M. Foster, Ford Madox Fox, Arnold Bennett, Samuel Butler, H.G. Wells, James Matthew Barrie, Rudyard Kipling, and dramatists like we have Gal Sorty, G.B. Shaw, T.S. Eliot, and Sino Casey, James Singe as well. Okay, so I was talking about the important writers, okay, that you need to cover for the CUT-PG exam, and so these are the major authors, and there are important works that you need to cover. So apart from that, in Indian writing in English, there are some major authors. Okay, there are also major authors for Indian writing in English. So there is a second part in your syllabus. There is an Indian writing in English. So starting from the major authors, so you have to also cover the major authors from that Indian writing in English. Here are like the important works, the important authors of Indian writing in English. Actually, here you have Amitabh Ghosh, the famous writer, need to cover. You have to cover Amitabh Ghosh, then you have Arun Joshi, then Arundhati Roy, Atiya Hossain, Arvind Adiga. From these writers to be covered here, Amitabh Ghosh, Arundhati Roy, Atiya Hossain, Arvind Adiga, and Anita Desai. And Anita Desai's that is daughter, that is Kiran Desai. and here Bharati Mukherjee, the diaspora writer, Indian diaspora writer, and Bhavani Bhattacharya. So, and the works of Chaman Lal Nehar, like Azadi, the Pakistan novel, very important. Chetan Bhagat's novel, this time it was asked also. Chetan Bhagat's novels, 5 point someone, that kind of novel was also asked by Chetan Bhagat in this year, in the CUTPG exam. Then you have to cover the works of GB Desani. GB Desani, that is all about age hatred, all about age hatred, Hindustan Malay hatred. And you know that this work, all about age hatred, is actually a kind of precursor to coin the term chatnification for Salman Rushdie. So it was Salman Rushdie who had coined the phrase chatnification, and here GB Desani's work, that is actually Hindustan Mala all about age hatred, had influenced Salman Rushdie to coin that phrase, the term, that is chatnification. Pioneering work was the Hindustan Mala hatred by GB Desani. Okay. Now, after completing GB Desani, we have to also cover the works of Jhumpa Lahiri. Jhumpa Lahiri's works are also very important. Jhumpa Lahiri's, like Namesake, Lowland, these are important works by Jhumpa Lahiri. Then the works of Kamala Das, famous poems, and the autobiography of Kamala Das. Novels of Kushbant Singh as well, and the short story of Kushbant Singh. Then the important novels of Kamala Markandeya. Kamala Markandeya's novels are Nectar in Sheep, A Silence of DJR, Coffer Dams. These are important. A handful of rice, Kamala Markandeya's novels to be covered. And Kiran Desai. Kiran Desai is The Inheritance of Loss, Halla Bolo in the Guava Orchard. These are important works of Kiran Desai need to cover. And the important here, the trio, one of the trio is Mulkraj Anand's novels, the important works of Mulkraj Anand. And here, Mulkraj Anand, the first novel, you know that 1935, the novel that is actually 1935 novel, that is actually the first one is Untouchable. Then the second one is the Coolie. The third one is the Two Leaves and a Birds. So the important novels of Mulkraj Anand to be covered. And you will be finding that, okay, Mulkraj Anand was heavily influenced by the philosophy of Mahatma Gandhi. Mulkraj Anand was heavily influenced by the philosophy of Mahatma Gandhi, and Mahatma Gandhi was also appears in as a character, okay, in Untouchable at the end of the novel to abolish the untouchability. So important works of Mulkraj Anand is to be covered for CUTPG exam and even for UGC Senate exam as well. So, and even you know that Mulkraj Anand is also known as the Dickens of India. He's also known as Dickens of India, as well as Jola of India and Balzac of India. Jola and Balzac and Dickens of India. Why? Because you know that in the works of Dickens we have seen that, okay, that Dickens has depicted the socio-economic condition, the socio-economic and political condition of England was actually depicted in the work. Yeah. Hello, Saurabh. So in the works of Dickens, we'll be finding that the socio-economic and political condition of the contemporary society were depicted in the work of Dickens, as well as in the realistic novels of Zola and Balzac. That's why Mulkraj Anand we'll be also finding in the works of Mulkraj Anand that same kind of elements. Okay, he had also depicted the contemporary society, the lower middle, the conditions of the lower class. How I'm talking about the untouchability, the poor class. So that's why Mulkraj Anand is actually known as Dickens of India, and that is the Zola of India, Balzac of India. So after completing the important works of Mulkraj Anand, you have to complete the works of R.K. Narayan. R.K. Narayan's famous novels like The Guide, The Bachelor of Arts, An English Teacher. So these are the Savitri. So these are important novels you need to cover for R.K. Narayan. And in which novel for the first time he has employed the fictional setting. And so you need to cover one by one for R.K. Narayan is also an important writer. And you know that for The Guide in 1960 he got the Sahitya Academy Award. Okay, the guide was published in 1958, and at the end, after 2 years, 1960, okay, he got the Sahitya Academy Award. So, important novel of R.K. Narayan, The Guide is also very important. Actually, you have to cover where the writers like characters like Roji and Raju. So Raju becomes actually first he was a railway guide, And then at the end of the novel, okay, he sacrifices his life. He sacrifices his life for the benefit of the village. Mangal is the name of the village. Mangal is the name of the village. And at the end of the novel, we'll be finding that okay, Raju is actually has become a Mahatma. Raju has become a Mahatma, and Raju is sacrificing for the sake of this to bring rain. To bring rain, okay, he was sacrificing his life at the end of the novel. So this is the transformation to a Mahatma. So, and after completing the novels of R.K. you need to cover the novels of R.K. then you have to Raja Rao. Raja Rao's Kanthapura is a very famous novel. You'll be expecting a questions from Raja Rao's Kanthapura. Kanthapura is very important. Okay, so Kanthapura using the Sthal Purana, so the elements can be found in that Sthal. Raja Rao's novel and the Comrade Kirillov, the Cat and Shakespeare. Okay, Comrade Kirillov, the Cat and Shakespeare. These are important works of Raja Rao. You need to cover also that. And after covering Manohar Malgan's The Bend in the River Ganges, Mahesh Dattani is a very important writer. Mahesh Dattani is a very important writer also, because first dramatist to win the Sahitya Academy Award for Final Solution. First dramatist to win the Sahitya Academy Award for Final Solution. So Mahesh Dattani's works like Bravely for the Queen as well. Important characters, the elements that can be found in their works as well. And then Maheshita Devi. So after completing Mahesh Maheshita Devi is because why Maheshita Devi is very important? Because in CUT-PG exam there is a portion called translation studies. So in CUT-PG there is a translation studies. So you know that was Gayatri Chakraborty Spivak who has actually who has actually translated, okay, who has translated many works. Exactly. It was Gayatri Chakraborty Spivak who has translated many works of Maheshita Devi into English, like Imaginary Maps, Breast Stories. Exactly, Saurabh. Yeah. Imaginary Maps, Breast Stories. Okay. So these are important works that have been translated. Choti Munda, that has been translated into English. That's why translation study is also very important for CUT-PG exam. That's why you have to cover the works of Maheshita Devi. Okay. Then you have Nihar Ranjan Roy, an artist of life, portraying Rabindranath Tagore. Nihar Ranjan Roy is portraying an artist in life, that is portraying Rabindranath Tagore as well. Also there is Gayatri Chakraborty Spivak is a very important figure because he had also translated Derrida's work of grammatology. And then Nihar Ranjan Roy is actually portraying what? Nihar is portraying the character of Rabindranath Tagore. Good evening, Saurabh and Sujit. Exactly. Portraying Nihar Ranjan Roy in his works like an artist in life portraying Rabindranath Tagore. And then here important writers like Niraj C. Chaudhary. Niraj C. Chaudhary is very important. The autobiography of Anand of India. So Niraj C. Chaudhary is a very important writer actually. Then we have Raja Ram, we have discussed as well. R.K. Naran, R.P. Jha, Ruth Parbar Jha, Raskin Bond, R. Parthasarathi. Then Shashi Deshpande, Salman Rushdie's works are also very important. Okay. Sobha Dej, Speed Post, Socialite Evenings. These are Sobha Dej's works as well. Meenakshi Mukherjee. Okay. Meenakshi Mukherjee's. These are important. Meenakshi Mukherjee's. Then you have writers like Taru Dutt as well. Bikram Seth's novels. Bikram Seth's The Golden Gate. Taru Dutt's poems. Then you have V.S. Neufeld. Don't forget V.S. Neufeld. V.S. Neufeld's work also important. And the Marathi playwright Vijay Tendulkar. Okay. The code is in session. Sakaram Binder. Okay. The code is in session. Silence the code is in session. Silence the code chalu hai. Okay. So the works of Vijay Tendulkar as well. Very important. And here the works of V.S. Neufeld. Taru Dutt's works. And here the most famous House for Mr. Whisper, exactly, and the most famous work of here, that is the dramatist Girish Karnad. Don't forget to study Girish Karnad. Girish Karnad's works are very important. Okay, Hayabadana was heavily influenced by the works of Thomas Mann's The Transposed Hate. Thomas Mann's was heavily influenced by the works of Transposed Hate by Thomas Mann's. Hayabadana, Jajati, yeah. The important Nagamandala, Jajati. Okay, these are important works of Girish Karnad. Okay, you not forget that as well. So these are the important Indian dramatists, novelists, poets that you have to cover for CUTPG exam. I've already launched my course for this exam actually. If you want to join the crash course, I'll be definitely helping you. I will be helping you to prepare both the parts, part A as well as part 2. In part A, there are total 25 questions, and in part 2, there are total 75 questions. So total you have 100 questions. Okay, I have already launched my course. If you want to join, you can join that course as well. If you want to join, you can write down in the comment box. Yeah, or you can also WhatsApp me as well. And one thing that you need to cover is that the list of Sahitya Academy Awards. Okay, the list of Sahitya Academy Awards, the Man Booker Prize winning novels as well, Sahitya Academy Awards as well, Sahitya Academy Award, the recent Sahitya Academy Awards. Okay, you need to cover also as well the recent Sahitya Academy Awards. Okay, so we talked about the major authors of Indian writing in English, talked about the text, including English translation as well, and the history of Indian literature. And if I talk about the literary terms, we have like allegory. What is allegory? What is ballad? What is blank verse? What is comedy? Comedy of mass, comedy of humor. What is dramatic monologue? What is elegy? What is enlightenment? What is epic? Then what is fancy imagination? What is the difference between primary imagination and secondary imagination? What is egotistical sublime? What is negative capability? What is fancy? Imitation kya hai? What is intentional fallacy? What is then you have affective fallacy. What is pathetic fallacy? Motive kya hai? And after that also ode, figure of speech like ode. What is orbit? What is limerick? What is ode? What is haiku? Limerick? Onomatopoeia? Paradox kya hai? Oxymoron kya hai? Plot kya hai? So these are things you need to cover as well. Everything you have to cover one by one. So you have to be, your concept should be clear actually. Your concept should be clear when you are appearing for any English literature exam. So satire, types of satire, soliloquies, sonnets, different types of sonnets, tragedy, and wit, like that you have to cover. Okay. So, and here if I talk about the literary genres, like you have fictional works, some non-fictional works, some live writings, some biographies as well, and the diary writing as well. Like Pepys, John Evelyn, Samuel Pepys, John Evelyn, they were the diary writer. Okay. Drama as well, essays of Francis Bacon, novels as well. Literary genres to be covered. Types of genres actually, different types of genres like fiction, non-fiction, live writings, biography, autobiography, diary, drama, essay, novel. There are genres: poetry, prose, short story writer, epic, travel, and important Hindi short story writer as well. Important Hindi short story writer as well. Like Munshi Premchand, you have to cover Munshi Premchand, the famous work of Munshi Premchand. If we talk about the aesthetic literatures, aesthetic part, if we talk about the aesthetic, that you have to cover the works of Kalidas. You have to cover the works of Kalidas when you are preparing for CUTPG English literature exam. So works of Kalidas is also very important. Okay. Munshi Premchand in Hindi literature is also very important. Some works of Munshi Premchand also is also to be covered actually. And here the science fiction, what is the basic idea of science fiction? What is the speculative fiction? What is cyberpunk? Okay, what is travelogue writing? What is epic? It to be covered one by thing. And the most important thing is the another important thing is actually comparative literature. Comparative literature and the translation studies. Okay, the main concepts of comparative literature. The main concepts of comparative literature. Who were the main theorists of comparative literature? Who and what are the important works that has been translated into English as well, and the important text of comparative literature. So in CUTPG exam there is also a part called literature. So the theorist, important books of comparative literature and where it was started, when it was started, why it was started, what is the aim of comparative literature. So the objectives of comparative literature, the aim of comparative literature, what are the concepts, what are the main theories, and what are the important texts of comparative literature to be covered. Okay. And the most important thing at the end is the literary criticism and literary theory. Literary criticism and literary theory. So if I talk about the theory, starting from formalism, then you have the neocriticism. So formalism, neocriticism, then you have structuralism, post-structuralism, deconstruction, reader response theory, and this is how Marxism. Okay, this is how it will be the new historicism as well. So formalism, neocriticism, structuralism, post-structuralism, deconstruction. So you have to cover the important text. Okay, yeah. So important text of important text of that writer actually. Important. Who are the important? Like in new criticism, there are important. In new criticism, there are important writers. Like you have the first one is the practical criticism author. The author of practical criticism, that is I. A. Richards. I. A. Richards. Then you have Clint Brooks. I. A. Richards, Clint Brooks, William Emerson. Then you have Alan Tate, John Turanjem, Robert Penn Warren. So they are the important new critics. Okay, so I. A. Richards, Clint Brooks, Afer Levitch, R.P. Blackmore. It's not R.P. Blackmore, Robert Penn Warren, not R.P. Blackmore, Robert Penn Warren, John Turanjem, I. A. Richards. These are important, and even you have Clint Brooks and William Umjet and Mundo Beardsley. They are important new critics. And if we talk about the formalism, there are Victor Salvosky, important writer of formalist writer. Okay, there is the talking about the defamiliarization. Okay, talking about the defamiliarizations of language. They are saying that there are poetic language as well as ordinary language. They are dividing poetic language and ordinary language. So in order to make defamiliarize, they are using poetical words. Okay, that is the defamiliarization of ordinary language. Okay, Victor Salvosky's term. And then you have also structuralists like Father de Saussure, Claude Lévi-Strauss, Charles Sanders Peirce. They are structuralists. Then you have post-structuralists, Michel Foucault. Then you have reader response theories as well. You have Norman Holland, Wolfgang Iyer, then Stanley Fish. They are the reader response theories. Okay, new historicisms, then cultural studies, post-colonial. Then you have Marxism. To cover one by one. So you have Marxism, structuralism, post-structuralism, feminism, then eco-criticism. Okay, study of ecology and literature in interdisciplinary. What is eco-criticism? Eco-criticism is study of literature and ecology. Ecology in a interdisciplinary way. Study of ecology and literature is known as eco-criticism in interdisciplinary way. So, and the important post-colonial writers. Like you have Edward Said, Frantz Fanon. Okay, important writers of post-colonial writers. Okay, and feminist writers like Mary Wollstonecraft. Okay, Simon de Weber. Then you have Kate Millett. Okay, Suleiman Feldstein. Okay, to cover one by one thing. And at the end, the last part is the awareness of current literary trends, events, and awards. Okay, you have to cover the current literary awards that are given to important authors. Like you that Sahitya Academy Award in poetry, Sahitya Academy Award in prose or in novel, then Booker Prize winning novel. Then you have Pulitzer Prize for fiction, Pulitzer Prize for poetry, Pulitzer, like that. Okay. Pulitzer Prize was given in American literature. Pulitzer Prize. So you have to cover the recent awards given to any authors like Pulitzer Prize. Okay, Pulitzer Prize. Then you have Sahitya Academy Award, Booker Prize, and Nobel Prize. Okay, awareness of current literary trends, events, and awards. So you have to cover the last 2 years. Pulitzer Prize novelist writers and the Booker Prize, and here. That is the Sahitya Academy Award in India. Okay, and there also what kind of festival is happening, the events, literary events and trends, which festival is happening now, in which recently, like that. Okay, you have to cover one by one that. Okay, so this is how you can construct that how you are preparing for the exam. I hope that this video will help you to prepare in a better manner for the upcoming CUTPG exam. I definitely will help you. Okay, in the upcoming days also I'll be making videos. I'll be helping you to qualify CUT PG exam as well. So stay tuned with this channel, and yeah. And you tell me now, what is your query? Now you tell me what is your query, what do you want me? And for your kind information, I have already launched the batch for CUTPG exam. I have already launched my batch for CUTPG English Literature exam. If you want to enroll yourselves, okay, you can enroll here. Okay, and registration is open. Okay, okay, registration is actually open. Got it. So I'll be ending the session here. Do join in the evening session. I'll be covering Victorian novels there. I'll be covering Victorian novels there. Okay, do join in that session as well. In the evening session, I'll be covering MCQs on Victorian novels. MCQs on Victorian novels. Clear? Okay. You are facing problem while remembering the date of any works. Exactly, everybody faces that kind of thing actually. So only the revision is the key. Only Sujit, you have to just revise. Do revise. 1 second. Okay, revision is the key. Do join the evening session where I'll be covering Victorian novels. Exactly. Revision is the only key, and try to connect with other words as well. So when you are unable to remember that date, actually try to remember that date. Okay, try to connect that date, okay, with another important work. If any work was published in that, okay, in the year. And this is how connecting a work to another work you can remember. Try to connect one work with another work, and that is how you can remember for a long time. This is the only thing. Revision and try to connect. Okay, clear now? Clear now? Exactly. Okay, let's end the session here. Take care, everyone.